Picture this timeline: 1850 BCE to 1928 CE, 3,780 years. Every single one of those years, silver is humanity's most effective antimicrobial. Egyptian healers apply it directly to wounds. Soldiers survive infections that should kill them. They don't know why. They don't understand bacteria, don't understand ions, don't understand what we now call the oligodynamic effect. But it works. Alexander the Great carries water in silver vessels during his campaigns beginning 335 BCE. The Romans include silver nitrate in their official pharmacopoeia. World War I medics wrap battlefield wounds in silver leaves because infections are killing as many soldiers as combat. Then penicillin arrives in 1928. It's a miracle. Infections that killed millions are now curable with a pill. Silver falls into obscurity. Why use ancient metal when you have modern pharmaceuticals? Fast forward to 2019. Antibiotic resistance kills 1.27 million people directly. Another 4.95 million deaths attributable to resistance. 1 in 6 infections now resistant to standard antibiotics. The last novel antibiotic class was introduced in 2000, a quarter century ago. NASA uses silver on the International Space Station for 98% water recovery. The WHO distributes silver-impregnated ceramic filters to 2.2 billion people without safe drinking water. Hospitals coat equipment with silver to fight Marseille. 3,000 years. We're back where we started. The ratio? 3,780 years of silver dominance. 97 years of antibiotic effectiveness. We're now in year 25 of the collapse. This isn't speculation. This is documented pattern recognition. When modern systems fail catastrophically, whether through state collapse, policy error, or biological evolution, the consequences follow predictable trajectories. The autopsy on antibiotic effectiveness is complete. Same overuse, same resistance, same reversion to what worked before penicillin existed. The question isn't whether we go back to silver. The question is whether you'll see it coming. The term oligodynamic comes from Greek, few and force. Even minuscule quantities of silver devastate bacterial populations. Carl Naegeli documented this scientifically, though he couldn't identify the actual mechanism. What he discovered was that silver at concentrations as low as 0.01 to 0.1 milligrams per litre negatively impacts bacterial metabolism. Here's where modern medicine collapses and ancient wisdom resurfaces. Silver attacks bacteria through multiple simultaneous pathways. Silver ions penetrate bacterial cell membranes through interaction with thiol and amine groups in bacterial proteins. The cell membrane integrity becomes compromised. Bacterial contents leak out. The organism dies, but that's just mechanism 1. Silver ions directly interact with bacterial DNA and RNA, interfering with replication and protein synthesis. Silver nanoparticles, solid particles at the nanometer scale, generate reactive oxygen species, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl radicals. These create oxidative stress that degrades cellular proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. The bacterial cell self-destructs from accumulated chemical damage. Stay with me on this. The oligodynamic effect explains everything. Antibiotics target single metabolic pathways. Bacteria adapt through single mutations. Silver attacks cell membranes, DNA function, generates reactive oxygen species, and interferes with metabolic processes all at once. Bacterial resistance to silver remains rare precisely because the metal attacks through numerous simultaneous mechanisms. The smaller the silver nanoparticle, 1 to 10 nanometers, the more effective it becomes. Higher surface-to-volume ratio means more silver available for direct bacterial contact. This is why NASA engineers designing water systems for the International Space Station chose silver ionization over chemical disinfectants. Between 2018 and 2023, antibiotic resistance rose in more than 40% of bacteria-drug combinations tracked globally. Average annual increases 5 to 15%. In Southeast Asia and Eastern Mediterranean WHO regions, 1 in 3 infections now demonstrate resistance to standard antibiotics. In parts of Africa, resistance rates exceed 70%. Escherichia coli and Klebsiella pneumonia, extremely common causes of bloodstream infections, are showing resistance to third-generation cephalosporins at alarming rates. Globally, more than 40% of E, coli strains and 55% of K. pneumonia strains now resist these first-line antibiotics. In the United States alone, more than 2.8 million antimicrobial resistant infections occur annually. More than 35,000 people die as a result. The estimated annual cost to treat infections caused by 6 common resistant organisms exceeds $4.6 billion. Here's what breaks the model entirely. The last novel antibiotic class was introduced in 2000. Pharmaceutical companies find antibiotic development economically unattractive compared to chronic disease medications. Financial incentives no longer reward antimicrobial innovation. Without substantial intervention, projections indicate antimicrobial resistance could cause an estimated $3 trillion in global GDP losses annually by 2030, exceeding the economic burden of COVID. Same overuse, same selection pressure, same cascade. The pattern doesn't care which bacteria. The pattern doesn't care which antibiotic. Amoxicillin capsules and tablets typically expire between 2 and 3 years from manufacture. For amoxicillin in liquid suspension form, commonly prescribed for children, shelf life drops to just 14 days after mixing with water. Once mixed, the medication degrades and loses potency regardless of storage conditions. Doxycycline tablets maintain stability for approximately 2 to 3 years under proper storage. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Between 2013 and 2016, some formulations of cephalexin suspension increased in price by 206%. Other antibiotics saw increases exceeding 90%. Between 2001 and 2013, there were 148 documented antibiotic shortages affecting various formulations. Some shortages lasted extended periods, creating situations where essential antibiotics became temporarily unavailable regardless of price. Let me walk you through what this means for preppers. A properly stocked antibiotic kit for a family of 4 sufficient for extended emergency requires $500 to $1,500 in pharmaceutical costs, not accounting for continuous replacement as medications approach expiration. You're rotating supplies every 2 to 3 years, forever. Colloidal silver products containing 10 to 30 parts per million, when stored properly in amber or opaque bottles at cool temperatures, remain stable for at least 1 year, some products demonstrating stability for longer periods. Silver nanoparticles stored at refrigeration temperatures 2 to 8 degrees Celsius and protected from light maintain stability indefinitely. Unlike antibiotics, which degrade through predictable pharmacological processes, colloidal silver changes primarily through oxidative dissolution, a process that actually increases the concentration of dissolved silver ions available for antimicrobial activity. A supply of pre-made colloidal silver or dry ingredients for DIY generation requires no rotation, no replacement of expired materials, no complex logistics. Ceramic water filters coated with silver can be manufactured and stored indefinitely without degradation. NASA's water purification systems for the International Space Station represent the most stringent test of silver ionization technology possible. The environmental control and life support system must achieve approximately 98% water recovery efficiency. The system collects wastewater from crew bathing, drinking, and urine, processes it through multiple filtration stages, and uses silver alongside advanced filtration to prevent microbial growth during storage. The water produced by these systems is actually purer than most municipal water supplies on Earth. Astronauts regularly consume this recycled water without hesitation. That's the standard silver achieves when properly incorporated into water treatment systems. In the developing world, the Potters for Peace organization has trained organizations across multiple continents to manufacture ceramic water filters impregnated with colloidal silver. These filters combine ceramic materials with active carbon and colloidal silver to remove bacteria, parasites, turbidity, odors. Studies demonstrate that colloidal silver impregnated ceramic filters remove between 97.8 and 100% of applied bacteria from water samples. The sustainability comparison proves compelling. Ceramic filters impregnated with silver nanoparticles are 3 to 6 times more cost-effective than centralized water treatment systems for reducing waterborne diarrheal illness in developing nations. An estimated 2.2 billion people worldwide lack access to safely managed drinking water. The WHO has supported silver-based ceramic filter initiatives specifically because they create sustainable water purification capacity that doesn't depend on distant supply chains or external technical expertise. If you're realizing everything you thought you knew about antibiotic reliability is wrong, hit that subscribe button. This is the independent financial historian. I perform autopsies on dead empires and dead antibiotics. Drop a helicopter emoji if you're positioning yourself for what's coming, and tell me what forgotten technology you want me to dig into next. I read every single one. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, has developed resistance to nearly all chemical antibiotics including beta-lactams, chloramphenicol, clindamycin, tetracyclines. Many healthcare facilities now employ silver-impregnated equipment. Surgical tools, needles, stethoscopes, furniture, door handles, even paper files. Research on silver nanoparticles against MRSA produces particularly encouraging results. Studies examining silver nanoparticles in the 5 to 50 nanometer range against MRSAs isolates observed bactericidal activity, even against strains carrying silver resistance genes, though with a notable lag period before cell death occurred. Here's where it gets terminal. The combination of silver nanoparticles with conventional antibiotics demonstrates synergistic activity. Lower antibiotic concentrations achieve bactericidal effects against resistant organisms. This synergy opens the possibility of resensitizing resistant bacteria to conventional antibiotics. Silver nanoparticles functionalized with ampicillin produce nanocomposites that kill ampicillin-resistant strains of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a particularly problematic opportunistic pathogen. These advanced formulations represent the direction of future silver-based antimicrobial research, therapies that maintain effectiveness against highly resistant organisms while minimizing safety concerns. For individuals interested in producing colloidal silver for water purification, the technical process relies on principles of electrolysis. A basic generator consists of 2 electrodes, typically pure silver, immersed in distilled water. When electric current passes through the electrodes, silver ions release into the water, creating a suspension of silver particles. Advanced DIY generators employ Arduino microcontrollers for precise control, current delivery, automatic polarity reversal to prevent electrode depletion, timer functions that terminate the process at desired concentration. A practical setup requires an Arduino Nano 16x2 LCD display, L293D motor driver IC, 7805 voltage stabilizer, potentiometer for current adjustment, 19-volt power supply, aquarium air pump for agitation, and 2 pure silver electrodes. Current adjusts within 0 to 10 mA. Lower currents produce slower generation but potentially higher quality. Polarity automatically reverses at intervals, typically 30 minutes, to equalize electrode wear. For household supply, operation at 5 mA produces commercially standard concentrations of colloidal silver, 10 to 30 parts per million, within approximately 3 hours. But here's what the FDA won't tell you openly, and here's what they absolutely will. The critical safety consideration involves the risk of argyria, a condition where silver accumulates in body tissues and causes permanent bluish-grey skin discoloration. Argyria is typically irreversible. Research suggests that estimated cumulative doses as low as 70 mg per kilogram of body weight can eventually produce generalized argyria. The World Health Organization established a reference dose of 6.5 micrograms per kilogram of body weight per day across all exposure routes, based on preventing argyria development. The FDA issued a final rule in 1999 establishing that all over-the-counter colloidal silver products are not generally recognized as safe and effective for any medical uses. The agency explicitly stated that adequate safety and effectiveness data have not been provided to support use of colloidal silver for any over-the-counter drug purposes. Let me walk you through the forensics on this. Current FDA guidance prohibits commercial marketing and sale of colloidal silver as medicine, but it does not criminalize personal possession or private manufacturing for personal use. The distinction between commercial marketing, prohibited, and personal use, unregulated, creates a legal grey area. The critical principle, topical application, carries dramatically lower systemic absorption risk than ingestion or injection. When silver remains on the skin surface, or is used in wound dressings, risk of systemic toxicity is minimal, because only tiny amounts are absorbed through intact skin. The therapeutic range for silver in wound care appears to be greater than 30 parts per million, but no more than 60 parts per million. Levels below 30 show reduced effectiveness. Levels above 60 exhibit cytotoxicity to healthy tissue cells necessary for wound healing. Fine silver, designated 0.999 or pure silver, contains 99.9% silver with only minimal impurities. This extremely high purity is essential for water purification and medicinal applications because any impurities could themselves leach into water or accumulate in tissues. Sterling silver contains only 92.5% silver, with the remaining 7.5% typically comprising copper or other alloying metals. Pre-1965, United States coins designated as junk silver contain exactly 90% silver and 10% copper. Here's where preppers make critical errors. The copper content raises theoretical concerns. If copper alloy preferentially dissolves into water, the resulting solution could contain copper ions that differ in toxicity profile and mechanism of action compared to pure silver. Some preppers argue the copper addition is negligible and actually beneficial due to copper's own oligodynamic properties. Others counter that potential copper toxicity creates unacceptable risk. Fine silver, 0.999 purity, represents the safest choice for water purification, though at significantly higher cost. Current precious metals markets price fine silver substantially higher than junk silver coins. The practical compromise: use pre-1965 coins for quantity, while reserving fine silver for situations where maximum purity is critical, infants or individuals with known copper sensitivities. But understand this: simply placing a silver coin in a water bottle does not guarantee antimicrobial effectiveness. The degree of silver ion dissolution depends on water chemistry, temperature, pH, oxidative conditions, contact time, variables that cannot be reliably controlled with passive methods. Modern wound care protocols using silver-containing dressings have been extensively studied over decades of clinical experience. The fundamental principle involves maintaining silver ion concentrations within a therapeutic window. Concentrations greater than 30 parts per million demonstrate antimicrobial effectiveness against planktonic bacteria and biofilms. Concentrations exceeding 60 parts per million begin to demonstrate cytotoxicity to keratinocytes and fibroblasts, essential cell types involved in wound healing. Application protocols for silver-containing dressings involve 5 steps: thorough wound cleansing with saline solution, careful assessment of wound characteristics to select appropriately sized dressing material, gentle application of silver-containing dressing directly to wound bed without overlapping onto healthy surrounding skin, coverage with secondary dressing, typically foam, to manage exudate, secure fixation with gauze, tape, or bandages. Dressing change frequency depends on wound characteristics and exudate levels. A wound with minimal drainage might require changes only every 5 to 7 days. Highly draining wounds necessitate more frequent changes. For individuals in emergency scenarios without access to commercial silver dressings, adapting these principles involves creating makeshift silver-containing dressings using distilled water saturated with colloidal silver to moisten sterile gauze, then applied to the wound and covered with additional dry dressings to prevent contamination and moisture loss. The theoretical advantage: it continues to release silver ions into the wound environment as moisture evaporates, maintaining antimicrobial effects over extended periods. Silver nitrate represents another form of silver suitable for wound care, primarily used as chemical cauterizing agent for hemostasis. Silver nitrate is supplied as small applicator sticks with dark tips that activate when exposed to moisture, delivering free silver ions that bind to tissue and form protective eshers that seal damaged blood vessels. This application is appropriate for specific situations: post-debridement hemostasis, treatment of hypergranulation tissue, control of capillary oozing. But it should not be used for general wound care due to tissue damage created by the caustic reaction. Commercial emergency antibiotic kits available in 2026 range from approximately $299 to $495. A representative high-quality kit contains 28 tablets of amoxicillin clavulanate, 875 mg, 6 tablets of azithromycin, 250 mg, 28 tablets of ciprofloxacin, 500 mg, 120 tablets of doxycycline, 100 mg, and 30 tablets of metronidazole, 500 mg. This composition addresses respiratory infections, urinary tract infections, skin infections, gastrointestinal infections. A comprehensive antibiotic stockpile for a family of 4, sufficient for extended emergency, would likely require $500 to $1,500 in pharmaceutical costs, not accounting for continuous replacement as medications approach expiration. A ceramic water filter system impregnated with silver can be manufactured using primarily local materials for approximately $15 to $25 per unit in developing country contexts. For developed country contexts, commercially manufactured ceramic water filters with silver coating can be purchased for $50 to $150 per filter, each capable of providing thousands of litres of treated water before requiring replacement. Over a 10-year household water consumption period, these filters prove 3 to 6 times more cost-effective than centralised water treatment systems for achieving equivalent disease prevention. They require no electricity, no mechanical expertise, minimal ongoing maintenance. The critical distinction in economic analysis involves time frame and scenario specificity. For short-term emergency scenarios, weeks to months, where conventional medical care might be temporarily disrupted, commercial antibiotic stockpiles provide highest probability of effective treatment. For longer-term preparedness scenarios, years or indefinite self-sufficiency, building silver-based water purification and wound care capability becomes increasingly economically rational. The upfront investment provides indefinite utility without ongoing resupply costs or expiration-driven replacement requirements. The trajectory from ancient silver use through the antibiotic era into the contemporary resistance crisis provides compelling historical context. For over 3,000 years, silver represented humanity's most effective antimicrobial intervention. The fact that ancient healers discovered and systematically deployed silver for water purification and wound treatment without any understanding of germ theory demonstrates the extraordinary effectiveness of the substance. The rapid transition from silver as primary antimicrobial to near obsolescence following penicillin's introduction reflected rational medical decision-making. Why maintain expertise in managing silver toxicity when antibiotics provided faster, easier options with dramatic cure rates? Yet the emergence of antibiotic resistance demonstrates that apparent inevitability of progress was illusory. The same Darwinian processes that shaped life for billions of years continued operating uninterrupted in bacterial populations. In this historical moment of crisis, silver has transitioned from being dismissed as obsolete folk medicine to being reconsidered as a potentially critical tool. The extraordinary fact, bacteria have not developed the extensive resistance to silver that they have to antibiotics, despite silver being used in medicine for thousands of years before penicillin. If this forensic breakdown gave you a new lens, hit subscribe. This one was inspired by your comments asking what to do when modern medicine fails. Drop a helicopter emoji if you're already positioning for what's coming and tell me what you want me to dig into next. The question isn't whether antibiotics will continue losing effectiveness. The question is whether you'll recognize the pattern before the pharmacy runs dry or be